Okay. Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Boys,
Here.
Connor, Davis, DeShazier,
Present.
Fusco, Garrett, Hannah, Hardy, Kamer, Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, will you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Councilman Lombardo. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilman Hannah will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us during this meeting. Bless the work we have begun and make good its defects, and help us to bring it to completion in a way pleasing to you. Bless the leaders of our city and make us truly grateful for your many gifts. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 13-0.
Thank you. At this time, we will move to our public comment period. All those that have signed up to participate, I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Just going to ask when you hear your name, if you'll please approach the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. And we are going to begin with apostolate.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I brought this information this evening. I just got through speaking at the county council meeting because it's not clear. And I want to talk about voting this evening. I'm Reverend Pamela M. Pinckney. I'm also go by the name of Apostolate because I'm doing something new. I'm running for president of the United States of America, and I'm doing something new in this 2024 election. And Council President, my challenge is that I'm discriminated against because I'm not white and I'm not a male. I got a text message from 330-606-6253 when I was here previously at 8:21 p.m. Let's be clear, you won't be president of the United States, but I appreciate your message about Easter and tell me more about Oriana House and Morgan Stanley. I don't come here to be assaulted, insulted, and harassed. I'm a candidate, and because I'm not white or a male, I should not be excluded from processes, and this is very inappropriate. Before I came here this evening to discuss voting, I ran into a person in the Wilbeth, Arlington area who spoke of her concerns regarding shooting, housing violations, et cetera. Whoever the council person is, please see about it, and I have the information after the meeting so you're not embarrassed. Voting. As I stated, I'm a presidential candidate. This is the 5th time I've run for president of the United States of America here in this country. And as I stated in the county council, the legislation and the laws that were passed previously were under all white males with all white female counterparts, and it's time for that to change. And as I was speaking to Representative Sims before the meeting and Council President, we have no people of color that look like you and me on the Summit County Board of Elections. And I'm concerned because in Akron, which is a predominantly non-white city, there are some things that are some major challenges, and some people need to be looked at in terms of what we're voting for, because I even had a challenge, almost didn't make it here because of the transportation system, because poor and black communities are denied fair and equal opportunities. So as we vote and as we go forward, and as I stated to Summit County, I would like to work with you to correct this. My ninth cousin removed, General George Washington, the first president of the United States of America, was the first one to abolish slavery. And I would like to continue that abolition process. But in order to do so, we have to have people in here who we vote for who know that this matters. And I am a candidate, and I would like to be elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Apostolette. Ed
And-
Sturkey.
Hello, my name is Ed Sturkey. I know many of you. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm a local guy, born and raised in Akron, had a career here in public safety, also in the banking industry, ran a business for 20 years, raised my family here, retired in the area, worship, volunteer here. And I'm here tonight to speak to the issue of public safety. I wanted to say that I'm going to share with you a couple of facts that you're already aware of, but for some of you that may not be, just for your benefit. One of them is that we started this year with a 10-year increase, according to the Akron Beacon Journal, in homicides in Summit County. We also started this year, according to NBC Channel 4 Columbus, an extensive research study that said of the cities in the United States of America, of which there are approximately 330 with populations over 100,000, that the city of Akron, Ohio, was number 39 most dangerous city in the country. I share those facts to say that as we sit here tonight, it is unconscionable that this city does not have a fire chief, a public safety director, or a police chief. I know an announcement was recently made about the police chief, but he's yet to be sworn in. It's absolutely, positively ridiculous that that is the case as we sit here tonight, given those facts. I know that there's nobody in this room that's responsible for picking the police chief or the fire chief or the safety director. However, I do know that the influence in this room can be felt down the hall. I do not think that one more thing should be approved by the executive branch of city government until this wrong is made right. I worked for 32 years in the Akron Fire Department, and these are paramilitary organizations. They're structural. They rely on a person at the top, training, direction, instruction in critical situations. And there are people that maybe even some of the gentlemen sitting in the back of the room, I don't know, that want to aspire to achieving at the top of these departments. But hopefully they'll be given that opportunity. When I heard that the people were not, there wasn't a clear direction on appointing from within or without in the police chief's department, and then a recent development in the fire chief's department, that indicated that there will be further delay in naming the fire chief. It is my hope that this body takes it upon itself to right this wrong, to move the situation forward so that these institutions, the number one job of the city of Akron, public safety,
Mr. Sturkey, if
can
you
be
could
put on
just-
track. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much for sharing that. Thank you. And I did see that Acacia Reynolds and Reverend John Beatty have just entered. If you'll please stand so that you can be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Acacia, you're up. You're up.
Hello, Council, Madam President. I come before you today as a transplant to Akron. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and while this city does parks and recreation like no other city I've ever seen, the state of the police of this city is deplorable. Many of us do speak up about the state of the police in Akron, and we were called uneducated by the Fraternal Order of Police president. As a four-year degree college graduate myself, I take high offense to that. That level of disrespect to the city's citizens is exactly why the police have no respect from us. I have seen what real community policing looks like. In the town that I grew up in, it was radically racially divided in my younger years. It was much more commonplace to see a skinhead walking through our schools than it was to see a black person. When I was in junior high, the schools adopted the slogan, "No place for hate." And the town took that to heart from the top down. It is because they took that mantra to heart that there has been so much healing in that community just in my lifetime. If the police force in my hometown of Boyertown had remained jaded and just a bunch of bullies, like the majority of those I've had the displeasure of associating with here in Akron, change would never have come. The next town over from my birth home was majority black and Hispanic. And yes, there were some jaded cops there, but they still did not have the same dread of interacting with their police force that I see here in Akron. One of my neighbors that I grew up with actually worked in that city's police force. And the comfort of having a neighbor pull you over was that I knew that yes, I was speeding, I had broken the law, but he knew that my family, if I was speeding, there was a serious problem. So I didn't have a problem paying that speeding ticket because I knew I was in the wrong. And I also knew that he was not going to harass me and he was not going to overcharge me. And I will continue next time.
Thank you, Acacia. Thank you for sharing. Reverend John Beatty.
Madam President and members of the council, I wish to speak about the gag order that this council has passed, I think almost unanimously. The gag order, I feel, needs to be changed, and I'd like to suggest some ways that the council might redeem themselves from this anti-First Amendment freedom of speech gag. Just delete the one paragraph that says you must register before or you will not be able to speak that night. At one time, just recently, folks could come in from the city and register just before the council began. It was just a few months ago. I don't think that's a problem. But the way it is now, it really limits the citizens' freedom of speech. The other part of that paragraph, after it says all opinions, all regardless of who you are welcome here. But in that second part of that paragraph, got a senior moment, trying to remember what the second part of the paragraph was. You limit to 10 speeches per evening, but then you limit for 30 days before they can speak again. Now, people as old as I am often forget when 30 days are past. And so much of the council business is passed from beginning to the time of final approval, way before those 30 days are up. So basically, the citizens don't have the ability to speak to issues. Also, the agenda. Many of us don't have the time to attend committee meetings to find out what is on the agenda. And it would be nice if we knew. These are just some suggestions how the council can redeem themselves from violating the First Amendment. Thank you very much.
Reverend Beatty, thank you so much for sharing. And just so that you know, our agenda can always be found on our website prior to committee meetings starting, okay? Thank you. That concludes our public comment period. Before you is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The consent agenda passes 13-0.
We'll now move into old business rules. Councilman McKittrick? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Time will be granted. Public Service, Councilman Kamer.
Thank you. Can I file 8 and 9?
Yep, items 8 and 9 will be filed. Public Service. We did that, we already did that one. Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
Continue time, please.
Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item 0, offered by Mayor Malik. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts offering voluntary separation payments to deputy chiefs within the Akron Police Department in order to provide an immediate means for effectuating change and providing an opportunity for promotion within the Akron Police Department, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
The committee's request is for time.
time will be granted.
Item number 1, offered by Fusco. Ordinance accepting the eligibility report for the Meridian Urban Renewal Area, approving the Meridian Urban Renewal Area Plan and making necessary findings in connection therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
For an advertised for public hearing.
this item will be referred.
Item number 2, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving the historic designation of 816 East Market Street, Homier Universal Building as a historic landmark and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Request the committees for suspension of the rules with favorable report.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. Based on the recommendations from the department and the Historic Preservation Commission, we recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 3, offered by Fusco. Ordinance approving the historic designation of 242 Lake Street, Brown Family Home as a historic landmark and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. I respectfully request a vote so that we permit someone to speak at this moment on item number 3.
Okay.
So, and that's the petitioner.
Yes.
So I put that in a motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, there are no objections. Fine.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be more than happy to introduce them. I know
Okay,
that
yeah.
we do have the Honorable Veronica Sims, who is here with us, and her sister, Dr. Lisa Brown. If you want to approach the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Madam President, Margot Somerville, Akron City Council members, and esteemed guests present here today. My name is Dr. Lisa R. Brown. I reside at 242 Lake Street in Akron, Ohio. I'm also an assistant professor of graduate studies at the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas. In an off-the-record meeting and conversations, Commissioners Murphy and Hepner altered my application without my knowledge, removing items 5 through 7 of the application previously unanimously approved. In my assessment, this action weakened the application for our desire to possibly pursue a higher state or national historic site designation, with local designation being a prerequisite. Unfortunately, de facto actions or the inconsistent changing of the rules are not uncommon for us as Black Americans. Our ancestors legally earned the right to vote, but then faced barriers from antagonists who required that a Black citizen could only vote if their grandfather voted. A man who was likely enslaved, had no civil rights, bound to be respected, and certainly could not have voted. I'm reminded of my shero, Dr. Rosa Parks. Few people know she was told she had to pass a written test the first time she attempted to vote legally. She had to wait for the results and learn by mail that she had failed the test and couldn't vote without evidence to justify the claim. On her second attempt, she made copies of all her responses and ironically was told she passed the test and could vote. I come here today in the spirit and boldness of Mrs. Rosa Parks. I've already shared my membership in the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH. In a support letter from the President, Dr. Evelyn McDowell of the Sons and Daughters of the United Middle Passage, included with my application materials, I addressed that ASALH is in partnership with the African American Civil Rights Network called Akron. We had a Zoom information session meeting last Thursday with Akron. The network authorizes the National Park Service for federal and non-federal activities to commemorate, honor, and interpret the history of the African American Civil Rights Movement, the significance of the civil rights histories and stories as a crucial element in the evolution of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the relevance of the African American Civil Rights Movement in fostering the spirit of social justice and national reconciliation. This designation could allow us to access non-competitive grants, enabling us to do educational events and civic and community engagement activities in the Summit Lake area. I actually plan to do one such event this summer at Summit Lake's Community Center about Mrs. Rosa Parks' life, with free books donated to me by the authors and the Howard Zinn Project. And I bought a copy for y'all to look at. Nevertheless, that was not a requirement with this application. Rules should not be made after the fact when a person in good faith and stewardship did all that was asked and required in a fair and open process. On April 2nd, the day before the one-year anniversary of my mother's chariot ride to heaven to join my father and big brother Jimmy, Commissioner Clark said that all 7 conditions cited in the application were met. There was a motion, then a unanimous vote to accept the application, and that any changes would require my agreement. Tinkering with the application to weaken its documentation for future use and being told I had no power to correct that wrong is unjust in my view. I explained that the home's front porch, which served as a unique architectural and cultural artifact for Black American life and culture in the neighborhood, met the architectural significance concern raised by Mrs. Murphy, to which she agreed and voted aye. If they felt it did not, she and Ms. Hepner were within their right to vote nay or abstention as per Robert's Rules of Order. The motion still would have carried with a 2/3 affirmative vote threshold met. I was not allowed to participate in any post-vote, off-the-record discussions which led to the altering of the 7 approved points. The public hearing and application process should be transparent, fair, and respected, which lasted over an hour for me in my fielding the commissioner's questions in this very chamber. The deliberations ended and resulted in a unanimous approval on April 2nd. If my application allowed them to recognize weaknesses to improve their process, I think that's great. However, our current application should not be penalized or held up for that shortcoming that rests with the Commission's website and not my failure to follow the process. To suggest that there was some deficit of understanding on my end about adhering to the process, which I heard said during the online live stream today, this morning I listened to, is highly inaccurate and low-key disrespectful toward my preparation for this honor. Mr. Antonucci sent me a document on the local landmark designation process following their vote on 410. In fact, it reads in bullet 3 and 4, upon passage of the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission, the application will then be presented to the City of Akron Planning Commission. That happened on May 10th. The recommendation of both the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission and City Planning Commission are forwarded to Akron City Council for a simple majority vote for approval or denial of the designation. This does not include a second impromptu City Planning Commission meeting held today, but not listed in this process. Therefore, I ask that I do not be thwarted like Mrs. Rosa Parks when she went to vote and others introduced de facto rules to inhibit her. I respectfully request that the Akron City Council vote to approve or deny the designation per the process legally set forth and refrain from creating hoops for my family to jump through when everyone keeps telling us this designation should be granted. Lastly, I helped my mother prepare and apply for the Akron ARPA Home Repair Program. The application was approved. We met with contractors to evaluate and document the home's needed repair. I would appreciate an update on the status of those funds and repairs. Unfortunately, I'm not getting response to my calls about the matter as it seems relevant to the alteration clause of the historic landmark designation. We as a family thank you for your time and attention to this matter in our application. We request no further roadblocks and a vote be cast today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And if you can stay after the meeting so we can talk after, that would be great. Thank you. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your comments. Certainly appreciate it. We had quite a discussion this afternoon around this. We just want to make sure we get it right. So therefore, we're going to request that we refer this item for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. This item will be referred.
Item number 4, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Jacobs Engineering Group, Inc. for professional consulting services in support of the Fixed Network Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 5, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Akron Energy Systems, LLC, for professional consulting services in support of the Fixed Network Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids to repair and rehabilitate the laboratory roof and HVAC system located at the Water Reclamation Facility and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 7, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with a consultant or consultants for the design of Kent Street Bridge replacement and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
If our IT department could adjust our camera, please. Thank you. Item number 8, offered by Kamer, ordinance approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board selected pursuant to Section 53.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City and Resolution Number 59, 2024, to hear and determine all objections to the special assessments for the improvement of Patterson Avenue between the termini of Winnipeg Street and 115 feet south of Boyle Street, Thornton Street between the termini of Dart Avenue and Grant Street, Inman Street between the termini of Wilbeth Road and Lovers Lane, Cole Avenue between the termini of Brown Street and Arlington Street, Allendale Avenue between the termini of Cooper Avenue and Wilbeth Road, and Brown Street between the termini of East Dresden Avenue and 10 feet north of Wayne Avenue by the repair of concrete pavement, determining to proceed with the improvement and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is to move forward with our concrete streets here in the city. This is our 3rd year doing this program. I want to thank the Service Director's Office for having this program in the city of Akron. And with that, we're asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 9, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, RFPs, requesting and receiving quotes and/or self-performing work for miscellaneous facility improvements at the Municipal Service Center, authorizing payment therefor and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 10, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts with G. Stevens, Inc. for professional engineering services for the Akron Waterways Renewed Program Management Team and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 11, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee without the formality of advertising for bids to enter into a contract or contracts with Keep Akron Beautiful for the provision of litter control, recycling, graffiti removal, and beautification activities in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, this is to move forward with helping Keep Akron Beautiful with funding. I'm sure we all know what Keep Akron Beautiful does. During today's committee meetings, we all had a chance to welcome the executive director here and hear from the wonderful things that they're doing, and hopefully we can continue to support them and what they're doing to make Akron beautiful. So thank you. With that, we're asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 12, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Spry Point Services for the customer information system to be integrated with the new metering system and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda, please.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 13, offered by McKittrick, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract with Oriana House, Inc. for confinement, rehabilitation services, and alternative sentencing options for certain offenders convicted of violations of the Akron Municipal Code of Ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is to continue contracts with Oriana House to be able to do that, the housing of certain folks through the court system, and they also work along with their specialty courts and the muni courts as well. And we're asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 14, offered by McKittrick, Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and if awarded, accept and expend grant funding for the FY 2024 Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Health Response Grant Program administered by the U.S. Department of Justice, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with the ADM Board to facilitate grant activities and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Committee requests consent agenda, please.
Thank you. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by Connor, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Akron Parks Collaborative for professional and supplemental services related to the improvements of certain parks in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Connor?
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules, please.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is our annual contract with the Akron Parks Collaborative to support the Akron Parks Challenge, the Friends of Parks program, and the youth program that stewards the parks in our neighborhoods. And we ask for its passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
Thank you. That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into committee assignments. Rules, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick. 2:15. Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Kamer. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobi.
2:30.
Is there anything else? Council, at this time? We have a motion to adjourn. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.